Raven Rock Mountain Complex, also known as Site R, is the kind of place born for conspiracy. Built during the Cold War and tunneled deep beneath the Pennsylvania mountains, it was designed to house the highest-ranking U.S. officials in the event of nuclear catastrophe. A Pentagon away from the Pentagon, concrete walls 12 feet thick, its own power plant, water supply, hospital. While most believe the facility has long since become a Cold War relic, it's still active, humming beneath the earth like a sleeping giant. Staff rotate through in 3-month deployments. Most never speak about it again. In September 2023, Elijah Monroe began his rotation. Elijah Monroe woke at 0600 every morning to the muffled hum of air recyclers. His quarters, windowless and tight, resembled a mid-tier hotel room with slightly more surveillance. After coffee from a dusty Keurig and a brief walk through sterile white corridors, he clocked into Sublevel 4. Monroe wasn't military. He was a civilian contractor specializing in signal auditing and residual power analysis, the kind of digital janitorial work few people understood and fewer still wanted. His job? Monitor ghost signals, track phantom drain, and make sure the decades-old systems weren't about to catch fire or start doing things they shouldn't. He shared his section with 2 others. Dr. Mara Kent, a former MIT robotics expert turned cybernetic systems analyst. Mara rarely spoke, kept her hair in a short bun, and always wore a navy fleece, even in 70-degree underground climate. She was sharp, methodical, and a little paranoid. Daryl Nunez, ex-Navy IT tech, now bored to death after 3 rotations at Site R. He brought snacks from home, snuck in an Xbox on his first week, and always insisted that the real weird stuff is buried deeper. Most days were uneventful. At lunch, they ate shrink-wrapped burritos in the commissary, made dry jokes about how many fail-safes it took to change a light bulb, and occasionally speculated on the few locked doors even their badges couldn't open. There was no sunlight, no cell service, and no news unless you asked for it. The world above could burn, and they'd never know until their 3 months were up. Monroe liked the silence. It kept the past quiet. It began with a discrepancy. Monroe was running his standard audit on Tier 7C systems, old thermal exchange units meant to power emergency ventilation protocols, except one unit was pulling 2.3 kilowatts more than it should have. Faulty meter? Nunez had shrugged. But the pull was regular, exact down to the millisecond, every 13 minutes. That's when Monroe traced the power line to an unmapped section of the blueprints, a blind spot deep in the core of the mountain, a place marked only as Storage 0. He requested a maintenance override. Denied. Tried again with an archived clearance from 2009. This time, it worked. Behind the locked gate, he found it. An old server terminal, beige, humming softly, a slight frost around the base from an active cooling unit. It powered on with a click. The screen lit up. And then he saw the phrase, "Quid Chris?" No cursor, no prompt, just the question. Monroe stared at the words. Latin. What do you seek? He typed in something simple. Truth. Nothing happened. He tried again. Classified systems audit. Still nothing. He thought about it. About the power discrepancy, the frost, the secrecy. Then something occurred to him. What also seeks me? The screen blinked. Lines of text began scrolling. Then, files, directories. It wasn't a standard OS. It looked hand-coded, rudimentary, almost alien, and yet familiar. There were logs, video clips, audio files, labels like MK Ultra Supplementals, and recovered signal, Vostok Station. At the bottom, a locked section labeled Non-Human Contact, Archive 0. He reached for the mouse. That night, Monroe dreamed of water. He was 5, on a dock in New Hampshire. His father, a naval officer, was helping him cast a fishing line. Stillness is power, his dad had said. Noise invites the deep. Ma. He'd always remembered that line. He woke sweating. The server was still in his mind. Its stillness, its watching. He went back the next morning. Mara noticed he was quieter than usual. Nunez just made another Xbox joke. But Monroe had seen something in those files, something he couldn't explain. A recording that didn't seem man-made, a waveform labeled Echo Theta that matched no known pattern. And then there were the logs. Subject Blake reached stage 4 cognition disruption after 47 seconds. Audio-visual loop resulted in 100% psychological instability. Do not expose non-clearance personnel. Yet the lock on Archive 0 was gone. Monroe hesitated. What is the burden of knowing? What do we owe the unknown? He sat before the screen, motionless. He remembered the nights he'd sit on the porch with his father, listening to shortwave radios, listening for patterns in the static. "We were never meant to understand everything," his father once said. "But some things, they find you anyway." Elijah had spent a life chasing patterns, explaining away anomalies, bringing chaos into code. This, whatever this was, couldn't be reduced to syntax. He could open Archive 0 and maybe see something no one had seen and remained sane to describe. He stared at the command line. "Do you wish to proceed?" He didn't answer. Not with words. He pulled the main power relay. The screen died. Cooling fans stopped. The hum of Archive 0 faded into silence. Monroe filed an anonymous report of energy bleed and left the server unmentioned. His rotation ended 3 weeks later. Monroe never returned to Site R. He resumed work at a private analytics firm in New Mexico. Quiet, off-grid. Sometimes he'd listen to shortwave static late into the night, ears tuned for something that never came. The server room? Sealed, disconnected, eventually paved over during a restructuring protocol in 2024. Official records list the anomaly as a software artifact caused by legacy data corruption. Site R remains active today. Its systems, redundant. Its tunnels, endless. But if you ask around, some technicians say there's a room that draws just a little more power than it should. A place nobody has a key for. And sometimes, when the lights flicker on sublevel 4, they say a question appears, just for a moment. "Quid, Chris?" Like the mountain itself is still listening. The Raven Rock Mountain complex was declassified in part in the early 2000s. While many details remain top secret, its existence is confirmed. Site R continues to operate as a military communications and emergency center, often referred to as the underground Pentagon. Whether it holds stranger secrets, well, that's harder to prove.